I'm your host, Danderson Super. Today we'll be looking into two urgent topics for environmentalists worldwide: habitat loss and invasive species. Habitat loss refers to the destruction of local habitats causing the inhabitants of the habitat to die or move. Invasive species are non-native species introduced by humans into a new environment where they are potentially outcompeted by native species. Here to talk about these topics is our resident scientific expert, Benderson Booper.
Thank you, Danderson. Habitat loss and the introduction of non-native species are devastating to the biodiversity of native ecosystems. On the IUCN's Red List of endangered and threatened species, over 85% of the organisms on the list are there due to loss of their native habitat. In addition, according to the World Wildlife Fund, forests and other habitats are being destroyed and turned into farmland by humans 10 times faster than they can be replenished. Invasive species are also dangerous. 400 of the species on the endangered species list are there because of the harm caused by invasive species. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service estimates that Asian carp, introduced to the Great Lakes, are responsible for the extinction of up to 46% of the lake's endemic species.
These two things are obviously bad for ecology, but how are they linked?
Well, there are plenty of examples of invasive species directly being responsible for habitat loss. On the same Fish and Wildlife website, it is explained how nutria, small introduced rodents, eat native Louisiana bald cypress trees. These trees' roots are essential for preventing erosion. Without them, the habitat crumbles and disappears. Also, many invasive plants, like kudzu, actually take a large amount of energy and convert it into ozone, a greenhouse gas. This can make a habitat warmer and cause other species to die out.
Thank you, Benderson. We have two clips of people directly affected by these two factors. Hello, sir. What's your name?
My name is Josefi Krakowski, and I farm potatoes.
How do invasive species impact your life?
Well, 10 years ago, farming was really good. There were lots of potatoes, and I fed my children every day. Now, a new type of snail has been introduced from Africa, around 2010 or so. It's called the African giant snail. It eats not just potatoes, but peanuts, beans, and watermelon too. Now I have no crops. My family is very poor, and they're all farmers. None of us can even send our children to school.
Why don't you move somewhere else?
Well, all the plants around my house have been destroyed. The animals have no food. Everything that is left is dead. Without plant roots, my house is sinking into the mud. Nobody wants our house anyways. Nobody is even left in my neighborhood. Nothing except for these snails.
Hello, who are you and what do you do?
My name is Lucas Langros. I am a fisherman in Lake Erie in the northern United States.
How have you been affected?
Sometime in the 80s, a kind of clam native to Russia somehow got into the waters of the Great Lakes. The clams were called zebra mussels. These clams have the ability to attach themselves to surfaces over time. Now, without their native predators, these clams are suffocating the lake. They grow on the top of structures, pipes, and even other clams. Yesterday I found some in my pipes. Ever since they were introduced, it became harder and harder to fish.
What's happening to the fish?
The zebra mussels eat little particles in the water, plants, small bugs, and such. They do this at such an alarming rate that the water has turned completely clear, destroying the habitat. The fish have less and less food to sustain themselves and their population falls off. Now I can't even make a living off fishing anymore. I have to leave the town and find another job.
Well, those stories sure were interesting. What's your take on the situation, Benderson?
Well, the impact of invasive species can be felt across the entire United States. The Florida Department of Agriculture considers African snails an imminent threat. They have hand-collected and removed over 40,000 snails since 2012. If you're a homeowner in Florida, please consider calling them to report a small infestation, and they'll send workers to get rid of the snails. Also, experts believe zebra mussels came to the U.S. through ship ballast water that had arrived from Eastern Europe. They unfortunately cannot be controlled in the wild without harsh and dangerous chemicals. But if you own a boat, remember to always empty your ballast water and clean your ship before you go to a different lake or river. Also, never bring plants or water from an infected lake to a non-infected lake.
I'd like to drop in as well. As a general tip, never let any non-native animal, pet, or otherwise into the wild. If you can no longer take care of your animals, an animal shelter can take care of it. Your pet has a good chance of becoming invasive. Also, if you have the chance, volunteer in habitats affected by invasive species. You can look around in your local area. Many places offer programs to replant native plants and species and reduce erosion, preserving the habitat. If you have some spare income also, consider donating to a nonprofit organization like to reduce risks from invasive species coalition or the invasive species council. Don't forget to do your part in reducing the effects of invasive species. You can help.
You can help.